If you do not innovate, you will fade away. Ji, Assalamu alaikum. This story is an amazing story about the prime of Nokia. In this picture, which was one of the most talked about picture on internet, Steve Ballmer, who was back then CEO of Nokia and then later on was acquired as CEO of Microsoft, as he was one of the good friends of Bill Gates. You can see the caption, the undisputed cellular king. Can you believe this? This is an era before the smartphones. This is an era when Facebook was not born. This is an era when Yahoo was still a prominent search engine. This is an era when Kodak was still the #1 photo printing company. And this is an era when Nokia was a tech giant. And few years later, we see Steve Ballmer literally crying in a press conference, saying that we have not done anything wrong, but God knows what went wrong. You know what? Sometimes when you do not foresee the future, when you do not innovate, when you do not improvise, and when you do not introduce or learn new things in your life, you are actually asking for trouble. And that's what happened with Nokia. That's what happened with Kodak. You know what? These two are one of the most famous case studies taught in many business schools. And the reason why they are one of the famous case studies is because all of a sudden they fell from their prime and they could not recover. In case of Nokia, since they did not improvise on the smartphone wave that was about to hit, Samsung with Android, Apple with iOS. And Nokia somehow thought that they are fine with their own operating system. Why do they need to upgrade? People are still using their cell phone, and smartphones were easy. They were like Windows 95, very easy to use with a graphical interface, and people could drag and drop, and they could, literally use it like a computer. And since Nokia was still surviving by large only on that snake game, pun intended, they lost the competition. And when they lost the competition, the tech giant, who was probably on its way to become the first $1 trillion company, was all of a sudden nowhere to be seen. Same is in the case of Kodak. Kodak did not improvise. It did not innovate. And when iPhone and smartphones came in with cams and people would take picture and store in their smartphones, and when the digital cams were introduced, the likes of Canon, Nikon, Coolpix, the rest was history for Kodak. The lesson here is, if you do not improvise, if you do not learn, you probably are going to face a lot of trouble in the future. Now, I for one has been a victim of not improving. Early 2000, I was focusing too much on Drupal. That was one of a web development suite, off-the-shelf content management system. And with the introduction of WordPress, I couldn't see the importance of WordPress and the demand for its services, and we didn't learn it. By we, I mean me and my company. So all of a sudden, as the demand for Drupal dropped on freelance marketplaces, and the demand for WordPress, Magento, and other off-the-shelf content management system that began to surge high, I couldn't pick up the tide, couldn't stay up with that competition, and I had to suffer before I realized my problem. And then I started improvising, learning new tech skills. I often say this in my videos and in my live streams, that just like software that comes up with an upgraded version, and the upgraded version has a lot of patch improvements and new features, why don't humans come up with their upgraded versions? We need to keep on learning new things. When you talk about Warren Buffett, and he says that there are 4 takeaways that actually convert dreamers to doers. And one of the important attribute he highlights is the importance of hitting the bed being well learned. And that means you are reading. Readers are leaders. Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, both of them read about 50 books in a year. They do not need to learn new things. They are already number 2 and number 3 richest persons on planet Earth. But learning means you come to know about different cultures, new possibilities, and that enhances your mental horizon, thinking ability. And when you have too much consumed, you probably are in a better position to execute as well. So my friends, if you want to become successful person in your life, the first thing you need to understand is your today has to be better than your yesterday and your tomorrow has to be better than today. And that essentially means keep on learning new things, exploring different avenues. Because when you keep on learning, when you keep on enhancing your mental vocabulary, so you are giving yourself a better chance to ace at multiple facets, opportunities, avenues in the future. So the takeaway from this discussion is never stop learning. Keep learning things. You won't understand the importance of it today, but in the future, as Steve Jobs said in his Stanford graduation speech, connecting the dots. You can only connect the dots when you look backwards, and everything begins to fall in place, begins to make perfect sense.